If you're wondering why so many people voted for Donald Trump, you have to understand the incredible power of fear in American politics.
Our country is going to hell.
And if you want to know what fear looks like for a lot of Republican voters, you have to look at what's been happening in right-wing media over the past few years. While most progressives have been rolling their eyes at Fox and Friends and Glenn Beck, conservative activists have built a major media empire. I'm not just talking about Fox News, I mean dozens of local and national radio shows and websites, all competing for the same audience, older, white Republican voters. That competition means that these outlets have had to get more extreme and sensational to get and keep the attention of an audience. And when you're a right-wing media outlet and you want people to pay attention, what do? You scare the shit out of them.
A crisis on our southern border. We are being raped in this country by illegal aliens.
Major crime wave.
This is the death spiral.
Government gone wild. Executive action to ban bullets.
He, in fact, has declared a war on Christianity.
President Obama was born into the Islamic faith.
You tell them that illegal immigrants are pouring into the country, that black thugs are rioting in the streets.
Black Lives Matter is killing Americans.
That refugees are actually terrorists sneaking across our borders.
Taking Islamic refugees would be suicide.
That the president is secretly a Muslim who hates America.
Barack Obama's emotional attachment to the Muslim world has hurt the USA.
You talk about death panels and Black Panthers and the war on Christianity and stolen elections and creeping Sharia.
Sharia law is now changing everything.
You make them believe that their own government doesn't care about them.
We're not governed by people who do not like the country.
That their identity as Americans is under attack.
The last acceptable form of discrimination in this country now, 1, Christians, and 2, white men.
And most importantly, you teach them to stop trusting other sources of information.
Time for Media Mash, our weekly roundup of all the ways the mainstream liberal media puts their spin on the news.
This is nothing new. It's how scam artists and cult leaders work. Convince your audience that the rest of the world is out to get them, that you're the only person telling them the truth, and it's really easy to get them to keep coming back to you.
This is the real world, and I'm just someone who wants you to know what's going on.
That brand of right-wing paranoia really easily becomes a breeding ground for things like white nationalism, anti-Semitism, and racism. You've got this toxic combination of fear and anger, resentment, frustration with political correctness, and a media machine that desperately needs to find external scapegoats.
So did political correctness prevent the atrocity from being stopped?
And so a lot of right-wing media has been hijacked by neo-Nazis and white nationalists and white supremacists. The alt-right you keep hearing about is the product of white nationalists merging with mainstream right-wing media.
They are basically the next generation of what are traditionally the neo-Nazi movements, the KKK.
Alex Jones and InfoWars are now peddling anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
It's not that Jews are bad, it's just they are the head of the Jewish mafia in the United States.
Breitbart has just become a straight-up white nationalist website.
Site known for bigoted attacks on immigrants, Muslims, and African Americans, among others.
For many years, the Republican establishment has been cool with this, has been cool with letting their base be fed a diet of red meat, paranoia, and conspiracy theories. Angry, paranoid viewers make for really reliable voters. The problem is, the same paranoia that makes someone a really good consumer of right-wing media also makes them incredibly difficult to govern. The kind of voter that doesn't like compromise, that thinks the country is falling apart, that wants radical and unrealistic fixes, and that assumes the worst of their opponents. And so over time, you've seen the Republican Party get increasingly pulled to the right. Just look at what happened with the 2009 Tea Party movement. After months of fear-mongering on Fox News and talk radio about death panels and government expansion,
it's anti-government, anti-CNN, since this is highly promoted by the right-wing conservative network Fox.
Panicked and angry Tea Partiers knocked a bunch of moderate Republicans out of Congress and replaced them with a wave of extreme, radical newbies.
We've come to take our government back!
Those newbies came into Congress channeling the same rage you see in right-wing media. Trust no one, say no to everything, shut down the government if you have to. And they did.
Most people in my district say shut it down. This country very well may need some sort of shock therapy.
The Tea Party wave ushered in an era of gridlock in Congress that has just become the new normal.
The House Republican caucus is at the moment essentially ungovernable.
And that gridlock creates a feedback loop. Nothing gets done, Congress's approval rating drops lower, and people get more and more scared and frustrated. And then someone like Trump comes along. And he trounces his opponents because while they're all trying to sound like normal Republicans, Trump fully embraces the fear, anger, and paranoia of the right-wing echo chamber.
If we don't get tough, we're not going to have our country anymore.
He takes the doom and gloom business model he learned on Fox and Friends and turns it into a presidential campaign.
You could say that Trump is the candidate Fox and Friends invented.
Even hires the head of Breitbart to be his campaign CEO. His supporters finally think they're hearing someone who tells it like it is, which really just means sounds like what they hear on talk radio every day. And the GOP establishment faced this impossible choice: oppose Trump and risk being steamrolled by his supporters, or throw the party's weight behind a paranoid, reactionary, and incredibly cruel version of republicanism. We know how the rest of that story plays out.
Trump has been selected as the Republican
and at this point,
nominee.
It's probably too late to be asking how to stop the Fox Newses and Rush Limbaughs of the world. Conservative media outlets have no reason to tone down their rhetoric. This is all great business for them. But we should at least be clear about what's happening here. We have a conservative media machine that badly needs its viewers to be scared, angry, and reactionary, and a system of government that badly needs its voters to be the opposite, to be level-headed and thoughtful and willing to compromise. One of those has to give. The paranoia that's been festering in right-wing media is lethal to a functioning democracy. And if other journalists can't find the antidote, can't figure out how to deal with and dispel those fears, we're gonna keep seeing our politics hijacked by hucksters who are more interested in profiting off a shtick than they are in actually making America a better place to live.